A very warm welcome to the art vlog, art lovers, with me, George Dopamine. Today you find me on a beach, but it's not one I'd like to take a dip from. I'm in fact going to be heading above in a second to the wonderful monolith of modern art that is Tate Modern, to bring you a very special exhibition by the artist Paulo Cezanne. This show promises to be one of the highlights of the winter and autumn and winter season in London and indeed in the whole UK. It promises to be the biggest retrospective of Cezanne's works for over 30 years. Cezanne has an incredibly important place in art history. He's often called the father of modern art. And I'm really hoping that this retrospective will show us the full span of his career and how he developed. And I can't think of an artist really whose early works, in Cezanne's case, these sort of frenzied, erotic, violent works, are different from the works of his genius and maturity. Cezanne did not become a genius by chance. He worked on the same scenes repetitively, influenced by the Impressionists but going well beyond them, as hopefully this exhibition will show. He worked on his style. He got rid of the brush and replaced it with a palette knife for a while, and he moved, as he constantly said, towards a promised land in terms of art. Cezanne himself, who was born in 1839 in Aix-en-Provence, never really received public recognition of his work till his later years. There was a one-man show in Paris in 1895, which kind of woke up the art world to the fact that he was a genius, and in his final years he was somebody who was really valued and revered by younger artists who trekked to pay pilgrimage to him at his studios, mainly in his later years in Provence. He was a cantankerous, difficult, prickly man, but I'm hoping that some of this life will also be shown. This Cezanne exhibition is on until the 12th of March. It's £22. I'm so excited about this show, and I'm really hoping it lives up to my expectations. So come and join me as I head into Tate Modern and bring you this new show by Cezanne. The first room is an absolute zinger, just two works, a portrait and a still life, but what works to set the tone for this magnificent show? The room Becoming Cezanne attempts to show how Cezanne became the master that he is recognised as today. You're able to make beautiful contrast between sugar bowl, pears and blue cup and still life with fruit dish, which really begins to exemplify him finding his artistic voice. You probably wouldn't recognise the first painting in the exhibition entitled The Murder as a Cezanne, but there it is. Room Radical Times attempts to make a new curatorial link based on recent research between Cezanne's work and the radical and turbulent political times in which he lived. Whereas Room 4 focuses on some intimate family portrait. Room 5, entitled Le Stack, Between the Sea and the Mountains, is where the exhibition, in my opinion, really begins to launch. We see that warm Mediterranean light, purity of form and colour, no shadows. And we see the difference between Cezanne and his fellow Impressionists. Whereas they were looking at the immediate effect of light, he's looking at how we perceive objects, breaking the object down. And it's a fascinating room, this one. Down a small corridor, you're confronted with Cezanne's palette and his paints long since dried up. This is not just a moment when your heart beats a bit faster at seeing these deified objects of the art world, but also because this corridor, narrow and quite dark, provides a sort of transition, if you like, to full throttle Cezanne in the second half. And you're confronted straight away with a room of his magnificent still lifes. I've never seen so many in one place together. It allows you to contrast as he obsessively returns to a similar form, and also reminds us that still lifes, this most fashionable art form, often dismissed as a Dutch thing from the 18th century, it brings joy to the viewers, and people really were spending so much time in this room. The highlight of the whole exhibition for me was room 8, his repeated paintings on Mont Sainte-Victoire. And this is because Cezanne was determined not to deny the fact that paintings are essentially two-dimensional. So he wasn't interested in imitating the real world. He called his paintings constructions after nature, in which the essential elements of the three-dimensional world were reassembled on a flat canvas. And he wanted to represent the real spatial relationships between objects without breaking up the flatness of the canvas. He devised his own method, the so-called flat depth, which you're about to see in my favourite painting of the whole exhibition, this one from the Philadelphia Museum of Art. You can see from the date 1902 to 1906, it's at the end of his life, and it's why, in my opinion, Cezanne is such a genius. The show is just a gift that keeps on giving, because we then come to an astounding collection of his bathers paintings, paintings that hold real emotional heft, because they are relating back to some of the happier times of his childhood in Provence and adolescence as well. At room 10, Cezanne, the artist, shows us how these bathers paintings meant so much to a range of artists, from Picasso to Matisse. The final room, Slow Homecoming, isn't so much a euphoric crescendo as a confirmation of everything that's gone before. There are still lives, there are paintings of Mont Sainte-Victoire amongst others. The main thing that holds this room together is the fact that these paintings were painted in the last 7-8 years of Cezanne's life. don't always do this, but I have to say the merch of the exhibition, including the catalogue, looked very fine indeed. And if I had more money, I could have spent an awful lot in here. I mean, there was some wonderful products, some linked to Provence, some linked to the kitchen, some really, really lovely things. And it is worth, like, if you come out of the exhibition a bit exhausted, grabbing yourself a coffee and then coming back with some good selection of books as well. Wow. Well, I hope very much that you enjoyed that sneak peek into the Cezanne retrospective at Tate Modern. We have a hit on our hands, guys. In fact, I would go as far as to say this is a once-in-a-generational opportunity to see so many brilliant Cezannes together. And for me, it's the biggest, the best sort of mega show, if you like, since the Raphael exhibition, which I previewed back on Good Friday earlier in the year. And it's incredibly special for several reasons. Firstly, is the range of works that have come from a huge number of galleries. When I'm looking at whether a show is worth coming to or not, I always think, am I going to see art I wouldn't usually see in the UK? And with this show, it is an incredible yes. I lost count of the number of galleries that had lent works to this show. So many from America, not just the big ones like the Metropolitan Museum of Art, MoMA, the Getty, the Washington National Museum of Art in Washington, but also smaller ones as well, like the Phillips Collection, and galleries as far afield as Baltimore, St. Louis and Philadelphia. Alongside that, European galleries, obviously the French ones like the d'Orsay, but also galleries as far away as Finland, Helsinki, Basel, Madrid had lent works. And so this is incredibly good value, because you're going to be seeing works that, unless you've travelled, you have not seen before in the flesh. And by the way, with Cezanne, this review will not do it justice. You have to see these works in the flesh. That's the first thing. Now, it's not just about, there's loads of works from loads of different galleries in the world. The nature of Cezanne's practice, his constantly revisiting themes, means that seeing this in reality can only be seen today if you're looking, unless you go to somewhere like the d'Orsay, by looking at the works being brought together from all over the world. So the Mont Sainte-Victoire room, for example, or the still life room, you can only really understand Cezanne's practice by looking at multiple versions of the same work. And so by bringing them from all these galleries, you're able to do that. That's fantastic. Thirdly, I would say it's a beautifully lit exhibition. I don't often say that, but the works absolutely sung, and I was adoring them. I was falling in love with them, and that was really special. Finally, I loved the fact that the show alerted us to which artists had owned some of these works by Cezanne. He's often known as an artist, and by alerting us to the provenance and the ownership, we can really get a sense of his influence and power as an early 20th century artist. Honestly, it's like a who's who of early 20th and late 19th century art. So, as you can probably tell, I'm thrilled with this show. It's exceeded my expectations in some ways, if that was possible. There's a couple of criticisms. I mean, one, as you hopefully picked up, it was incredibly busy. This is a blockbuster. It's a once-in-a-generation show. Expect to take your time, but don't let that put you off. It's great. I'm so thrilled to see the Tate packed, because a couple of the more recent exhibitions have not been so packed. So the Labena Hamid one, for example, was quite empty the two times I went to it. The second thing was that I thought the first half of it was clutching at straws a bit. The room on Cezanne's relationship with political events, it was a bit weaker. But you go through this passage past Cezanne's palette and his paints, and all of a sudden, sorry, just going to come into the sun, all of a sudden you're transported into this room of still lifes, followed by the room of Mont Sainte-Victoire, followed by his paintings of bathers. This show comes alive in the second half. That's not to say it's bad in the first half, as you've hopefully seen. It's absolutely not. But it comes alive after the corridor, if you like, which takes you into a portal to a new dimension. And yet, my big question at the start was, do you get to see Cezanne develop as a painter? Of course you do. There aren't that many from his early period. He actually destroyed some, and to be honest, these are minor works, so we didn't need to see them. It's the later works that we want to see, and this is incredibly rich in terms of its chronological spread, even though it's not a chronological retrospective. That wouldn't kind of make sense with Cezanne. So overall, You must come to this show if you're a lover of art in general, in modern art, and of one of the masters. I mean, I've grown to love Cezanne. He wasn't somebody, because I suppose he's not an immediate artist in the same way that maybe Van Gogh or Monet are. You takes a bit of time with him, but I absolutely love him now, and I just spent so long looking at those colours. I'm uplifted, I'm thrilled, I'm buzzing. And this show is on until the 12th of March, I think it is. Double check that on the website. It is £22, which in my opinion is really good value. You'll spend between an hour and 2 hours in here if you see the show properly. I would really hope that I'll be able to come several times, and I'm going to bring lots of people. We'll hopefully be able to bring the legendary PJ Arthur amongst others as well. Do come along to this show, and just be aware as well, I've noticed on certain Saturdays and Sundays it is already selling out sort of a few weeks in advance, so do book those tickets, but you've got plenty of time, and there's going to be tickets available later on. So don't forget to subscribe to the art vlog. I would give this show, by the way, a 9.2 out of 10. It was excellent. Just the busyness and maybe the slight weakness of the first half compared to the second pulled me back, but that's not a major deal, guys, is it? Do remember to subscribe to the art vlog. Hit that notification bell for many more reviews. Quite London based at the moment because so many new shows have opened. I'm actually struggling to catch up with them, bearing in mind I also work full time, but I have to get out to them all, and I can't wait. Lucian Freud will be coming up, amongst others, the big show at the National Gallery. Okay, do get out there and keep exploring the wonderful UK art scene.